During my time in seminary, I was invited to lead service at the church Jennifer and I were worshiping at in Toronto. I can't remember if it was during the prayers or the sermon, but I said that it would be wonderful if we treated our faith like the common cold. You know, how it spreads from person to person, infects one person and then one household, and then jumps from place to place to place. I guess that wasn't an image everybody was comfortable with. I was not invited back to lead service again. And people weren't all that excited to shake hands with me at the door. There's a part of our human makeup that is self-protective, ensuring that those with colds or illnesses or leprosy, as in today's reading, are at the limits of our society, ensuring that there's a buffer between us and them. In Jesus' time, not much was known of medicine, and so leprosy was a bit of a catch-all condition. Mostly unexplainable, highly visible, and eventually fatal. Left unchecked, it could wipe out entire towns, and so you wanted to stay away. In that time, priests would determine you unwell, and you'd be separated from community, from family and friends, to ensure whatever you had didn't infect others. In a way, Strathroy United has had that kind of suffering. As the article in the Age Dispatch this week wasted no time in reminding its readers, I think it was the second paragraph, Strathroy has seen nearly a half a dozen ministers pass through its doors in the last 20 years. You get labeled after that kind of turnover. Unwell. Not healthy. Stay away from there lest you catch what they got. In those times, the cry is desperate. Jesus, Master, have pity on us. They don't ask for alms or to be given back to their homes in the village. They don't even ask for healing, just pity, mercy. Mercy is what you ask for when you're out of ideas of improving your own life and when you're at the bottom of your barrel of plans for getting life fixed up. Have mercy on us whose problems obscure our blessings. Have mercy on us who dwell in death, in Good Friday moments, unable to make it to Sunday. Have mercy on us because we've relied on our own answers, our own strength, and convinced ourselves that we need to answer our own questions. Or our own phones. When we run out of ideas, we sit down in the dirt. Call it defeat, or self-preservation, or prayer. There in the dirt at the edge of the village, a new community was born. As Reverend Abliel beautifully said when he preached on this text, people who suffer together come together. They formed new community. They replaced the traditional boundaries of religion and culture with shared experience, shared exclusion, and shame. In the in-between world of Samaria and Galilee, between life and death, these 10 suffering with leprosy found each other. They came together. They offered support and compassion to one another. And similarly, I think, in the struggles and in the suffering of Strathroy United, you've done the same. You've come together, otherwise you wouldn't be here. We know painfully how many churches close every day. But I kind of think it's more than that. It has to be more than just commiseration. As the 10 cry out for mercy, Jesus sees them. He doesn't ignore them like the rest of the village has or avoid them for self-preservation. He hears their need and sees it too. He commands them to go to the priest, and as they went, they were healed, not because of who they were or the lives they led or the anniversaries they celebrated. They were healed because of who Jesus is. In their excitement, 9 run off. There's lots of sermons about those 9. and the reasons they might have had. I left something on the stove. There's hockey practice. I need some alone time. I want to see my family. I need to do my laundry. That's the list of reasons why people don't come to church. I'm sure there's other reasons why the lepers took off, but I'll tell you, 10% return isn't bad. 1 out of 10, 10%, that's pretty good. If we're talking about investments, if your legacy funds are invested and you get 10% generated, that's great, better than GICs. In the United Church, it's almost a dirty word to talk about tithing. But tithing is looking at the whole of your financial worth and giving 10% to God. Bring that up in a church meeting and you'll know how much 10% really is. But weren't 10 healed? Jesus asks. Weren't there 200 people in church for anniversary? Wasn't the Sunday school much bigger when I was growing up? Didn't we fill school buses when we were going to Canada's Wonderland for trips with Jennifer and Jen Mountain and Bill Stevens? What do we do when we're constantly looking at the backs of those walking away? What do we do when we cannot help but look mournfully, yearnfully at the past, thinking the 9 are somehow more important than the 1? I think about those 9 like I think about those who have left the churches I've served over the years, or the families I've been able to walk with during a funeral, never for us to meet again. I pray that somehow they've had an experience of something powerful, something more than just me, and they cannot help but run home to tell their families. That's what we overlook in this story. All 10 are healed. All 10 experience Jesus. All 10 find new life and resurrection from their lives of death and despair in the dirt on the edges of the village. All 10 knew that their lives mattered. And if we were to think of the countless people that this church has affected and changed and inspired and helped, all those that will never return and give thanks, it would remind us about how important our mission is. Because you'll never know the full extent of the ministry of this place. There's no way to count the exponential reach that this church has, sharing healing from person to person. I wouldn't be here if it wasn't for Anne taking me to an open house at Emmanuel College, having Taco Bell in Toronto, and the hours of conversation in between. I think about how one experience blossomed into ministry and branched and changed the lives of all those I've been blessed to share my life with. When we get stuck on that which is not there, we forget about all that God is doing when we're not looking. This story is about gratitude and the different ways we live it out. At least one of the 10 was raised right. One remembered the elbow jab from his parents and the leading, "Now what do you say?" in that parental lesson teaching tone that you know isn't going to go away until you say thank you. That's our house right now. We've got a 2 and an 11. 2 is learning, 11 is forgetting. And we repeat, "Now what do you say?" ad nauseum. Because gratitude is not always second nature. It's something that's taught, something that's practiced, something that's trained into us. Gratitude opens us to each and every moment. It stops us like the person no longer suffering from leprosy. It reminds us of the gift of this very minute. As David Steindl-Rast, Benedictine monk and author and TED Talker, has said, everything is a gift. The degree to which we are awake to this truth is a measure of our gratefulness. And gratefulness is a measure of our aliveness. That one person stops dead in his tracks because he is finally fully alive. Sometimes it takes illness or suffering or struggle, an anniversary, to kickstart our hearts, to remind us what feeling fully alive truly is, of what feeling gratitude does for our lives. Diana Butler Bass wrote a beautiful book called Grateful, and she said in it, being grateful doesn't fix anything. Pain and suffering and injustice, those things are real. They do not go away. Gratitude, however, invalidates the false narrative that these are the sum total of human existence, that despair is somehow the last word. Gratitude gives us a new story. It opens our lives to see that every life is unique and dignified and graced. The lives of the poor, the cast-offs, the sick, the jailed, the exiles, the abused, the forgotten, as well as those in more comfortable physical circumstances. Your life and my life, we all share in this ultimate gift. Together, right now. I think of Anne and Abiel and those who have led and challenged and inspired you. I think of the gift of the countless faces of those here and those not here. Those who remind me of the power of the gift of life that we share. I laughed when I read the Age Dispatch about all those old faces coming back for this anniversary service, and I thought, they haven't even seen how much gray hair I have. How dare they judge me? But I remember the saints, and forgive me, because I won't name everyone and I'll get in trouble and yada, yada, yada. But I remember Roger Kennedy and Dorothy Doan and Dr. Courtner. And I have to say doctor because I think if I called him Larry, the roof might fall in somehow. I remember with gratefulness the people who opened their lives in powerful and inspiring ways in this place because of God's grace. I'm moved by all of you who faithfully and foolishly and beautifully still carry the Christ light in spite of all that has gone on. The nearly half a dozen ministers, and the decline of Christianity, and the rise of Sunday sports, and the countless other reasons that make us think that we're no longer having an impact, because we are. But if we focus on the 9 walking away, we'll never see it. I think that's what's held Strathroy United together, and what gives you hope and challenge today, that you must live your gratitude always. In Paul's letter to the Thessalonians, he encourages us, he challenges us to give thanks in all circumstances. Not just on anniversary Sundays, not just when we've been healed, but in the times when we've only got 10% left. Be it faith or hope, it may not seem like much, but it's enough for Jesus. One of them, when he saw he was healed, came back, praising God in a loud voice. He threw himself at Jesus' feet and thanked him, and he was a Samaritan. Jesus asked, "Were not all 10 cleansed? Where are the other 9? Has no one returned to give praise to God except this foreigner?" Then Jesus said, "Rise and go. Your faith has made you well." We are healed by Jesus. We are made well by the gratitude that we show this world. Training ourselves to live in gratitude offers the world something it doesn't do naturally. That gratitude shared spreads from person to person. Whether we're the one that returned or the 9 that ran off in excitement, we have this hope and this reminder that as the body of Christ, despair is never the final word. And if we don't share our gratitude, how do we expect the world to? In other translations of this text, it says, "Rise and go. Your faith has saved you." Gratitude with faith saves us from our very selves. It saves us from our constant need for protection from the bottomless pit of consumerism and self-help, and it allows us to be thankful for what is. Gratitude reminds us that we don't have to be grateful for everything, but like the new community found in the dirt, we can still be grateful in every moment for the life and love that finds us unexpectedly. The healed Samaritan is made well because finally his eyes are open to the presence of God that was with him all along. The church is no different. When we open ourselves to the words of our creed, to the mystery of the words, we are not alone, we cannot help but be grateful. Rachel Held Evans, a contemporary theologian and author of the book Searching for Sunday, said the church is lovely, irregular, sometimes sick, and sometimes well. This is the body like no other that God has shaped and placed in the world. Jesus lives here. This is his soul's address. There's a lot to be thankful for, all things considered. The church has taken a beating. Every day she meets the gates of hell and she prevails. Every day she serves, stumbles, injures, and repairs. That she has healed is an underrated miracle. That she brings life is beyond reckoning. I give thanks for Strathroy United Church. For in sickness and health you have sought the presence of life with you, the presence of community in you, the suffering of death which is bound you, and the hope of resurrection in you and with you forevermore. I thank God that this is not some hidden secret, but the song you sing each and every week. And I thank you, because you didn't think it strange that some pimply-faced, greasy-haired young'un might have something to offer the church. And not just me, but because for 140 years you've listened to the voices in your midst, the presence of hope and life that speak to you again and again. For God has healed you and will heal you. God will always make you well. May you look excitedly to the future and be ready for what God has in store for you next. Amen.